Welcome, fellow seekers of challenge and triumph, to the SufferSooner podcast. Join us on a journey where ordinary souls embark on extraordinary endeavors. From the relentless grind of gravel to the punishing gauntlet that is triathlon, we've tasted our fair share of suffering. So fellow endurance warriors, let's lace up our shoes, strap on our goggles, and dive headfirst into the challenge, knowing that with every step, stroke, and pedal forward, we grow stronger together. What's going on, guys? This is episode 22, and we are joined with our good friend, Adrienne. I've known Adrienne for, almost since I've moved to the Kansas City area, but at least 4 or 5 years. Every time I get a chance to ride with her or chat with her, it's always a good time. She makes me laugh. She's a great person in the triathlon community. So chances are, if you know of Adrienne, or you've probably recognized her voice, especially if you've been at any of the local triathlons or even the local gravel events. She's a Ironman finisher. She's a half Ironman finisher. She's an Unbound 100 finisher. So has a lot of personal accomplishments. She's also a nurse and a mom and wife, and she's just a great person all around. And she has a coaching. She works with Move Up Coaching, which is a coaching outfit here in Kansas City. But just want to say welcome to the podcast, Adrienne. How's it going?
Travis, you're selling her short, though. Adrienne did the 200 last year in the mud.
Oh, yes, that's right. She is the 200. That's right.
I was going to jump in, Travis. I thought it might be easier just to go through the list of things Adrienne has not done.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I knew I was going to leave some. I should have just asked for her to send me an email of all her palmares so I can just read them off. Yes, that is right. She did finish the 200. That is right. In the mud year, where there was, something like 60% attrition on that race. So... yeah.
Thank you all for the nice intro. And happy to be here this morning. But for sure, thank you, Sarita, Danny. Yeah, the 200 last year was no joke. So, and yeah, I've pretty much feel like I've done it all. But I also I get bored kind of easily. So hence why I try to find new adventures.
Ah, good.
And I'm trying to remember, did you and I meet at a half Ironman, or had we met before that?
We met at Shawnee Mission Triathlon on the beach. And I remember it vividly because you and I both were sitting in the sand complaining how we did not want to swim.
And we had to swim across the little area to get to the swim start. And I did not want to be wet 1 second sooner than I had to.
So
yes. So I found an instant friend who hates, I hate swimming more than anything. That is very well known in the tri community. As from my coaching realm, people are like, yeah, that's the coach that hates swimming. Yep, correct.
What percentage of triathletes hate swimming? I'm just curious. Anybody know? It's got to be high. I mean,
it's got to be high.
Yeah. Unless you're a natural born swimmer,
that or fear. Involved with it.
But I think my most distinct memory of Adrienne, and probably one of my favorite triathlon memories, is that later that year, she and I did Augusta 70.3, and it might have been the most miserable 70.3 I've ever done. It had to have been over 90 degrees for that run. But
that was the year the river was flowing backwards, they said.
Yes.
That is absolutely correct.
Anyway, one of my favorite memories really ever was Adrienne and I sat at the finish line that year as the last finishers were coming through. And it was one of the most endearing, just motivating things I've ever done, just to see people come across who have had cancer or who are blind. And I just remember sitting there with someone who was also just soaking up every second and thinking to myself, I found myself a kindred spirit. And now every time Adrienne and I get a chance to ride or race together, we generally do.
Amen. That's true.
Right. So, well, what got you into the sport? What in triathlon and gravel and stuff? What got you into all of this craziness?
So honestly, and well, let me step back. Like since youth, like I've always been involved in some kind of sport, right?
Okay.
So like baseball, softball, because I grew up in the great state of West Virginia where there's no female sports. So I was the only female on the baseball team and whatnot. Regardless, 2010, I was bored to tears and I was in a pretty rough car accident that caused some spinal injuries in 2005. And I had ballooned up to 315 pounds. I actually was trying to find the Marvel Ironman movie
Hmm.
and flipping through the stations and found Iron Man. I was like, boom, okay, cool. I'm going to watch, Tony and his um, acrobatic whatnots. Instead, I came upon Ironman World Championship, and it was all those heartfelt stories that heart transplant guy was out there trying to do a full Ironman. And I was like,
Wow.
"You guys are nuts. These folks are crazy, but how inspiring!" I'm like, I don't think I can do a full Ironman, but I'll get there. Maybe get there someday. With all my injuries. So started up with a sprint distance, that was the initial. And it's kind of grown from there. And then just to be short, 2019, it'd been 9 years of triathlon. And I was like, man, I'm kind of bored of this sport. I get bored of things very quick. And so I had a buddy, he's like, you should check out gravel cycling. I'm like, what's that? And then he's like, you literally go on country roads on a bicycle. I'm like, that's freaking nuts. But let's do it. So going back to that realm, I bought a bike. My husband, bless his soul, had no clue. And just didn't even train for the thing. I just went out to Rocheport, Missouri, out by Columbia.
Yeah.
And did my first race that was the first time I'd ever been on gravel and came in 5th. And I was like, I kind of like this sport.
Yeah.
So that was kind of the start of both of them. And it's just kind of proliferated from there.
So
that's awesome.
That is
Yeah.
awesome. And can you maybe talk a little bit? Because I think one of the things that we really like to see is, and we like to promote is the whole all bodies on bikes mentality and everybody on bikes mentality. And you talked about sort of what got you started and how it sounds like kind of serendipitous that you stumbled into triathlon, but like, what was it like getting started? Like how did you just like get the motivation to say, you know what, let's take one step forward here and see what happens? Like maybe you can talk us through that just a little bit.
Sure. So first off, my neurosurgeon, he told me on my last appointment when he was releasing me, because I had a cervical fusion done with that spine. He's like, it's only going to get worse from here. So I know it sounds I'm taking a step back, but in the discussion, but I always kept that in my head, and I'm the type, you don't tell me I can't do something. So I will always push the limits, safely, medically safely as I can. But just with that alone, that was my main driver. And then, I just got to the point where I was so depressed and I was so out of shape. I was smoking, I was drinking, all the fun stuff that, and being an RN at the heart of it, I knew better. I knew better. I shouldn't have been doing that kind of stuff, but I just kept doing it. Finally got to the point, it's like, you're an athlete and totally fine. I went to a therapist for 3 years. She finally was like, Adrienne, why aren't you like working out or doing something? I'm like, that's a good point. So started that up. And I did my first triathlon at 282 pounds. I remember.
That is awesome.
That is so great.
Yeah, and I was very concerned, like even that the bike wouldn't hold me up properly.
Yeah.
I had a Specialized Roubaix.
Yeah.
But I went to an amazing bike shop that's sadly no longer here in KC. But they like went through and they took the time to go through the bike and do everything to help me get into the sport. But took about 2 hours with me and got me on the right bike. And I'm forever indebted. So hence why I try to give back that time nowadays too. But yeah, I just went out and did it. I said, heck with this. I'm going to prove everybody wrong, and yeah, make it for what it's worth for me.
Yeah, so Travis and I were on a training ride recently talking about this very thing, like with folks that just like, where do you get started and how do you get started? And you know, everybody has sort of a story that might get them into a situation where they just don't know if they are capable, right? Or they don't know where to get started or how to get started. And we were just talking about how the triathlon community, especially, and even in the gravel cycling community, I'll specifically state that, is so welcoming. But you know, we're also tend to be sort of sort of locked into the network of people that we have, right? We, once you're in sort of into the triathlon community, you don't know a lot of non-triathletes is what tends to happen, but such a welcoming community. And it's like, if people just take that sort of first step to engage, you will be welcomed with open arms, and people will find a way to help you get to the goals that you have. And I think, just hearing what you just described is really important for folks that maybe don't know where to get started. Like, just all you got to do is just talk to somebody, or go to the event and ask questions, and people will welcome you with open arms. So
I think it's a very good point, because for me, I'm usually kind of a bold person, yet I had so much insecurity going into it, especially at my weight, and my injuries too. But the folks that, at the bike shop were very kind to me. At that time, we had a all women's only triathlon that really promoted, inclusiveness. And then there was a clinic down here in the southeast side of town that I actually help run still. It's, kind of dropped off the past couple years, but it was all about getting people started and getting folks outside of their comfort zone. And honestly, we can encourage folks as much as possible to try to, like, hey, you should do this, you can do that. But it's not until that kind of that intrinsic motivation from them themselves to jump out of their own skin of sorts and get uncomfortable, that's when the magic happens,
that's right.
So that's when the things you start to grow as a person, you start to grow as an athlete, that it's, and then, those the limitations in your head where you're like, oh, I can't do this. Like when I first watched that Ironman, championship thing on TV, there's no way I can do an Ironman. Well, now I'm at full Ironman finisher ×2. It's always those limiting, thoughts that really kind of ground people to not meeting their potential. So I'm getting deep here, but
no, it's great.
It's exactly what I was hoping you would kind of get into, because I just think, and I know we'll get into this a little bit more later in the episode here, but I just think that there's a sort of challenge with folks. They just don't know, like, they don't know where to get started. Well, what if I don't have the right bike? What if I don't have the right shoes? What if it's like, get all that out of your mind. Or what if I can't do this? And it's like, get all of that out of your mind and just go try it. Get out of that comfort zone, because, again, without getting too philosophical, I think we have a problem in society of people just getting too comfortable. And next thing you know, you're in the rut of, bad habits and things that aren't healthy. And not saying everybody in here, and I'll speak for myself, not exactly a picture of health, but at the same time, you try to do things along the way that get you out of your comfort zone, challenge you, and just try to make you overall better person and better athlete.
Absolutely.
Well, Adrienne, one of the things I love about you that you continue to do, and I feel very lucky because I wouldn't certainly be sitting where I am now, is that you're the person who will teach someone how to shift their bike, how to change a tire, like just those super basic things that I had someone, her name was Tara, who did that for me, or I would never have even signed up for that first race. And I was just so thankful. I mean, she literally taught me how to swim in the YMCA pool while the 8-year-old swim team lapped me. And I was just trying to make it across the pool. And I really hope that if somebody else is listening out there or thinking about trying to do this, I promise you, I will stand in a field and teach you how to clip into your pedals too. I mean, just those really basic things that feel so intimidating. I'm glad to help you, whether it's gravel or triathlon or anything like that. I just want more people on bikes and more people
Exactly.
trying hard things.
Yeah,
Nailed it.
that's pretty much how we all are. I mean, I've, you know, speaking to Danny specifically, I mean, I would wake up every morning at 5:30 a.m. and we would go and swim, and I would sit there and swim the lane first, and then I would critique some of his form, and then we would have goals that we would work on, and it was just all to get him to swim better last year so that he could take on a full Ironman in September. You know, I mean, I think, you know, from the outside, if people are listening, you know, from the outside and just go, I've never thought about doing a triathlon. This is kind of what we all love to do. Like, you can get us to talk about this stuff forever. So like, if you have a question of like, I don't know how to shift my bike correctly for a hill. I mean, well, prepare for a 30-minute dissertation, because I got it prepared, you know, like we love talking about this stuff. And I love, you know, especially when you see, you know, circling back to what, you know, standing at the finish line of an Ironman, and seeing those people who have been out there all day and they've suffered all day cross that finish line. I mean,
It's awesome.
That's what it's about. Like, these people, you know, at first they thought they weren't capable of doing it. And then they went and they continue to work at it. And then you just see all of that at the end, especially at the end of an Ironman, or even at the end of something as big as the 200, you know, Unbound 200. You just see that they get to the end, and it's just this relief and excitement and joy and personal accomplishment. I mean, there's no better feeling in the world than, you know, seeing people, you know, achieve their dreams and cross that stuff. So, no, I think what you do, especially helping out, and like, you're always somebody who's out there helping out in the community. And I think that's one of the reasons we really wanted to try to get you onto the podcast and stuff and talk about it. So
yeah, I appreciate that, because that, you know, those folks in the back, now don't get me wrong, I have folks with Move Up endurance coaching. Like, I always say I put people on podiums, or I get them across the finish line. Like, I have all spectrums with my coaching, right?
Yep.
And I also have KC3 Triathlon Club. That club is specifically what I like to do, and that's more of kind of what Serena was talking about. I've got a guy right now, I don't even know how to use clipless pedals. Okay, well, next Monday I'm meeting with him. We're going to, you know, work on that kind of stuff. My husband never understood why I did not, you know, try to get payment for all this stuff and, you know, Tri Clinic and whatnot, until he went to one of the triathlons. And literally, as some of my ladies were coming into the swim, I was helping in the swim portion. They're literally running out as they're supposed to be racing, but that's okay. I didn't mind coming out and giving me a hug in the middle of the water before they jump into the water completely. Like, literally. And he looked at me and he's like, now I see why you do this.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's not about the finances. I love helping people. Hence why, you know, I'm a nurse too, but it's just, I love helping people break those challenges that they never thought they would be able to overcome.
Yeah. I think what, you know, and I'm relatively new to the whole triathlon thing. I mean, just did the first ones last year. And I think the one thing I picked up on just in observing for the few years prior to that is triathlon athletes and the spectators and the volunteers. It's all about a celebration of accomplishment. And while, yes, it's a race, and yes, there are people who are trying to get the top podium spot, and that's fine, but it really is about accomplishment, and whatever form that takes. It's about celebrating that you're better today than you were yesterday. And I think that's why, you know, for me, the stories that come out of these events are far better than the than the elite results or the, the professional standings or, and really anything else. I think it's all about seeing some of the stories that come out, and I think that's what creates the vibe for these events, and to have people like you, Adrienne, and many others that are so welcoming and so gracious with your time, I think is so important to keep everything moving forward.
Here I am, though, being a little contrary too, though. Triathlon, I feel like, can be very tribe-like as well. I mean, it's intimidating. You walk out there and you see people who have a $10,000 bike and all of the equipment, and it's intimidating. And I don't feel it as much in gravel, but it feels like sometimes it's a hard group to break into. So I feel like we also have people who are coming to us more and more saying, hey, I want to get into gravel. And Travis and I were talking about this the other day as we were riding too. Like, how do we be welcoming? How do we make that first ride not so miserable that you never come back? I mean, how do we be a more welcoming community? And sometimes where I certainly felt like I was not always welcome, especially as a woman, especially as someone who didn't have the cyclist body type. How do we kind of change that perception of not all of the triathletes and not all of the gravel cyclists are trying to claw their way to the top of the podium?
I mean,
feels that way.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, go for it, Adrienne. You first, for sure.
I was just going to say, I'm glad you mentioned that, because that's actually one of the talking points I wanted to discuss, because yeah, it is super intense. The triathlon community, like from the outside looking in, can be very intense. Like, you go to some of these local tries and, like you said, bikes galore that are, cost more than vehicles and so on. I personally like to, like KC3 and those, and just even talking, I don't care, like kind of like what Travis was saying, we will talk your face off about triathlon. My husband picks on me all the time. He's like, no stranger. And I think even mentioned in my intro, if you're at a gravel race or triathlon, I have a very distinct voice. And people are always like, there she is. I will talk your face off. Call it anxiety. I don't know, but I just love talking to people. I love getting to know people. But I think more folks like myself, I'm not putting myself on a pedestal, but Travis, you as a coach, there's other coaches here in Kansas City. Thank goodness for them. I will say we all work together. I don't feel like we butt heads. We're trying to make the community better. I will just say for folks that are like, where do I start? Reach out to, I think it's already been kind of tapped on, but reach out to any of these coaches. I can almost guarantee you, if you just say like, I don't know where to begin, or I don't have this, a swim cap, I don't have goggles. I can guarantee you, if they don't have it themselves, they can reach out to their tri group, and somebody's got something extra for you to have for free or a minimal amount of money, right? So that's where I'm trying to get that barrier also kind of down a little more, because you don't have to have a $10,000 bike. You don't have to have anything crazy. I even saw in 2012, I believe, it was like a Harley Davidson style recumbent bike on the bike portion of a tri. And I was like, wow, she was rocking it and she was doing just fine. So it's go with whatever you have. Just go out and have fun. But just know that there's plenty of gear out there for free or Facebook Marketplace that's for cheap, that you can get your journey started. But you've got to make that commitment to yourself to get it done.
Yeah. I mean, me and Danny were talking about this yesterday when we were riding, and we were talking about like how sometimes it can seem that triathletes take themselves too seriously, and they're like, getting all the gear, and they're like, oh, I got to have did you see what pros riding these wheels? Like, I got to have those wheels so I can shave, supposedly, 2 seconds off my bike time. And it's like, that's, I always tell the athletes that I coach and stuff is like, you just show up in your race, and that's the fun time. Like, you don't have to have all this latest and greatest equipment. Sometimes it's great to like kind of nerd out and just be like, oh, if I could do this, and I could shave some time off, and I could be a little bit faster. But really, in the end, it's all about just getting with other like-minded people and doing the thing. And that's, I think, what started out as triathlon for me. Was when I started doing it, I had a road bike. I had a road bike that I rode on the road all the time. It was an aluminum frame, and it was a Trek, and I rode it every day to my job. And then I was like, you know what, I'll try doing a triathlon. And for the first couple times, I just used the road bike, and it worked perfectly fine. And the more I got into it, I was like, well, maybe I'll make an upgrade and this and that. And the thing is I see people having just as much fun as I'm having on like a recumbent, like Adrienne said. Like, it's all about just having fun. Like, that's all we really care about, is like, that's the first thing I always ask my athletes at the end of a race. Did you have fun? Like, was it fun? Did you have a good time? Like, was the race fun? Because that in the end, that's all that matters. Like, because we're not, like I said, we're not pro, and we're not getting paid for, I mean, coaches get paid by their athletes, but as far as, paying to race, like getting paid to race, we're not that. That's not happening.
Unless you're asking Serena if you had fun. She had fun, and her general response is, I freaking hate this, and I'm going to sell this bike on the way home.
Yeah, but then 72 hours later or less,
then the pictures of the podium get posted, and then she's like smiling, and she's like, okay, I'm good.
Exactly.
So, no, and I'm the same way with Serena. Is the racing for me is not fun, but it's for a different reason. It's because I can't turn off the race, Travis. And so it's good that I can express my fitness and I can just bury myself, but I really enjoy training. And if it's a training race that I'm going to, like, let's say it's a tune-up triathlon, like, the one thing that I know about me is, and have heard from other athletes on the course, is like, man, that guy, he's saying hi to everybody. And he's like, he's singing songs. He's trying to do wheelies. He's like up the hills. Like, he's just goofing off on this race, and he's just having a great time. Like, yeah, that's, when you're training, I love training. That's where the fun is for me, is the process. But racing, I'm kind of sometimes with Serena's, that sometimes you get to a point where you're just kind of burying yourself, and that cannot be fun. So,
see, and I'm the one that's singing Johnny Cash on races and being silly, and people are staring at me. So
don't count yourself out. I sing Johnny Cash too, huh, Danny?
That's right. I mean, you hear that train coming, then Travis is right there. So it's great.
Oh, shoot.
So Adrienne, you've been in this for a while now, and I'm just kind of curious, like, how do you see sort of the landscape of triathlon changing, especially in the recent years? I mean, with the whole COVID thing, almost everybody had to take a year off for the most part. How have things sort of changed since then? And then maybe we can kind of talk about, the future of the sport a little bit, especially in the Kansas City area.
Yeah, so I've been specifically coaching since 2014, and that's where I started helping out with a local tri clinic. So I kind of refer the climate of triathlon, at least in KC, based upon that clinic. I will say, now, triathlon, it's kind of like the stock market. It will go down, and with many sports too. Like the participation will decline, then it'll go up, and then it depends on the year and all that. I will say, in the past, like you referenced, COVID, the height of COVID, it did drop sharply, and I don't feel like in this market here it has regained itself. I know USA Triathlon is really endorsing the youth aspect of it and the collegiate level, because I feel like they're really trying to tap into those age groups specifically, because they need to have a a better future and a better outlook. So
Yeah,
uh,
their whole goal is to get medals and at Olympics and have a better Olympic showing than they
there
have.
there is that too. So
because
the governing
because
body.
you because triathlon is a USA was made in the USA or whatever, and then here we are not dominating it, where it's all kind of dominated by Canadians and Europeans and
Yeah.
that's kind of stuff. So yeah, I
And
mean,
that's where USAT is. They have a little bit of a different focus. Yeah, I feel like they are trying to develop the youth programs. Um, they're getting there, but and they're trying to help promote it through the coaching realm. For us here in KC, I know we're trying to network and build the community. There's some tri clinics, like even just 1 days that are happening, just to try to get the new folks who are not as comfortable in there, so we can help develop them and go from there.
yeah,
But
I
yeah,
mean,
sadly, there has been a drop.
yeah, and I know Katie Renner has been working with USAT and promoting the. We had her on a couple weeks ago, and she's talking about like putting on a lot of. There's like 3 different kid triathlons that she puts on. So, yeah, definitely getting. If anybody's listening and they got children that want to give this sport a try, definitely get involved in that kind of stuff too.
And that's where, touching on that topic, Miss Katie, that's where your race directors come into play too. Because, you know, if you don't have a race that is really attainable or even well promoted by the race director, that's another thing that kind of makes the realm go stagnant. Katie does a heck of a job at promoting the race. Shawnee Mission, what is it, the 40th year this year?
That's right.
She's rocking that thing. Kill Creek, I think she does there too.
That's right.
But it all kind of stems, I will say a lot of this stems around the race directors themselves. And I think Katie does an amazing job. Sadly, I feel like some of the races have tapered off here in KC because, lack of support. Also, I get it. Height of COVID really kind of put a damper on finances and whatnot for some of these groups. So that's another playing factor there too. So from the race director down to even the coaches and the volunteers within the community, it makes a huge difference. So I just feel like getting the new folks or trying to, I hate to say it, like convert runners or convert cyclists into triathletes. It's just, it's kind of a dampered situation right now, but trying to, keep facilitating that network is going to be big. Even the gravel cyclists, talking about triathlon to them, converting over to triathlon just for kind of like cross training is huge. So I talk about that and strengthening and vice versa, triathletes to gravel cyclists, right? So that's a big thing over now too.
So real quick on that, I think just having done so many gravel events, you see a lot of triathletes making the sort of jump over to gravel as a cross training or a strength building opportunity. I think you're nailing something though that a lot of cyclists probably miss out on, which is there's a huge benefit I think for cyclists to cross train into triathlon and do some either early or late season events that are swim and run mixed in, because I think, just I'll speak from personal experience, I feel so much stronger on the bike when my swim fitness and my run fitness, it doesn't have to be race ready, but if I'm just consistent with some swim and run workouts, the bike just feels like it comes along so much better. And I'm sure there's a lot of reasons for that, physiological reasons for that, but I think that's a huge opportunity for people that they just need to take that, again, get out of the comfort zone and go learn how to swim, go run, and you'll find that, I think you'll find your fitness on the bike just it amplifies, in my opinion.
Agree wholeheartedly.
I think too, maybe playing off of some of the conversation earlier around the barriers to entry. Do you feel like the triathlon community is maybe aging a bit? And I say that meaning like, you've got some folks that maybe are retiring out, but you don't have a lot of fresh, fresh athletes coming in. Even, and I'm not saying they have to be, youth. Ideally, I think the ideal cycle, and this is probably for every major sport out there, the ideal cycle is you have a steady pipeline of young athletes sort of feeding in, and some of those are going to drop off, but you want that, healthy pipeline of young athletes. But I think triathlon is one of those things that a lot of people don't find it until later in life. And so I'm just curious, do you think that there's just, we're just not getting enough 20, and 30-year-olds that are sort of dipping their toe in, and do we see that where it looks like maybe is the triathlon community maybe just aging a bit and we need to figure out how to reach out to that other demographic?
I completely agree with that, because that's the 40-somes and the 50s, 60s there's plenty of participation there.
Yeah.
I actually looked at a local triathlon that just happened here recently, and I looked at more of the statistics in regards to age, and there were some early 20-somethings and even younger, and then it jumped to 40s. So it's that 30-somes is where we are not hitting the mark, or they're not participating. That always in years past, 30s, like mid 30s especially, people are more grounded in their life, their job, whatever it may be. That's when you see the participation start increasing. That's where I personally feel that's the group we're missing. And a lot of folks are aging out. They're like, man, I'm so, I don't even want to run anymore. So that's when, when I worked with a local tri, I'm like, hey, let's switch it to, I was on the committee back there with the sports commission. I'm like, let's add an aqua bike, to modify things for folks that have debilitating injuries that can't do a run. So you do a swim and a bike and boom, your race is done. That's perfect, right? But there's only so many events that these race directors can, allow, because, when you're running a long course, a short course, whatever, that's a lot on somebody. But even still, when you offer the aqua bike, you don't have enough participation because, people, phase out, or they just, I thought about that, but I don't really want to do that. It's just hard. It's really hard to kind of and gauge what people want to do. You have to make the races fun and exciting. And it's almost like, I always kind of joke, it's almost like, performing at a circus. You got to make things loud and fun and impressive, sometimes to really engage people. Whereas, others, you don't necessarily have to do that. I feel like gravel, my goodness, the first few gravel races I got done, I'm like, where's my medal? And they're like, here's a sticker.
Yeah, right.
I'm like, whoa. I'm like, this is totally wild to me. But I had to dumb down. That's rude, but you know what I mean? Dumb down my expectations. Whereas triathlon, it's like, I get this swag, I get this, medal, I get, all these things. But also I feel like that kind of comes back. This is kind of rude, bear with me. But as a nurse, because I do outpatient cardiac rehab, that's why I tell my patients, you have to rely on your own intrinsic motivation. So as much as you can get that cool medal from that extrinsic, gratification, intrinsic, that whole joyful feeling, that's where it's got to come from you. So again, landscape, yes, it's all changed over the years. But again, and I feel, height of COVID really knocked the wind out of a lot of people. It did. Us in the nursing realm, my gosh, healthcare, it was next level.
Yeah, you guys are doing the Lord's work, because my wife's a APRN too, and like you guys, and my mom, she's a retired ICU nurse. So like you guys, I look at my wife every day and just go, I don't know how you do it. You guys are the best. So
and that's why we love our people. Yeah.
I mean, so I want to go back to so this is something that kind of rubbed me, and I don't know if it rubbed me, and this could just be me, but when I finished Unbound 200 this year, they gave medals like it was an Ironman. And I was like, what are you doing? I was like, no, just finishing is the reward.
Yeah.
I don't need a medal. It's like,
Yeah.
I got a sticker. Like, so I kind of felt like, I don't know, maybe some people like the medals. Like, I mean, trust me, I hung it on my wall and I'll cherish it and all that other stuff. But, sometimes like that's what I felt like when I did Unbound this year. I think Lifetime kind of made the conscious decision to make it more like a Ironman event. It kind of gave off the Ironman vibe, which don't get me wrong, I love Ironman. Like, it's great. It's, an Ironman is an event. It is you've trained and the training is intense and the race is just awesome. Like, it will be a highlight. Finishing an Ironman will be a highlight in my life for a long time. But like, it just, you get the medal, you get the t-shirt, you get the finisher's plaque. I think we saw that, Danny, right? Like, you can get a plaque now at Unbound.
Yeah. There was a vendor there.
Readout and and I'm, I was kind of just, I don't know if I was just kind of taken aback as far as going on. I was like, oh, so we're going to the Ironman model now, which is,
But do you guys think that that's also a product of a decline? Because Unbound has never had a wait list before either. I mean, I feel like they're having to evolve to meet whatever needs of the people who are still coming back.
It's hard to say. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if it's
Because
if
I
it's
do agree, Travis, too, that race has really evolved into something different. It is now a weekend event. You can't just go up the
it's a
morning of
week-long
anymore
event.
like you used to be able to. You have to check in a day early. I mean, it's very expensive. It's not what it used to be 15 years ago under a different name where people were just out riding.
I think a lot of it is again, keep in mind there's the sort of commercialization of the event that's happening. And so as a result of that, it's got to appeal to masses. And then Travis, I think you're nailing it. It's here's your medal. Here's the swag. Adrienne, you summed it up. Like, here's the swag. Here's everything I get for doing the event and participating in it. And you've got to do that on some level to appeal to the masses, because let's face it, not everybody out there is doing it for the reasons we on this podcast are doing it, and that's good. There's nothing wrong with that, but I do think there's a certain amount of, you have to appeal to the masses. But again, what does it do? It inflates the cost of the event, which creates the cycle. So the smaller events, the real grassroots events, they can't keep up with that. I mean, we've had race
where they just give you like a 20-cent sticker. They can afford that in their $65 race cost, which is fine. But I don't remember filling out my Unbound questionnaire last year and said, you know what, I wish there was a medal.
It's true.
I know early on when I was doing tries and whatnot, and even like the whole surprise when I got done with my first gravel race, there was nothing. I was like, what the heck? But when I first started tries and even running races, I was like, oh yeah, I want the medals. I have all those guys hanging up collecting dust. And then I have gotten, at the very beginning, it meant a lot to me. So I can understand the new folks that means a lot to them. I get it. Nowadays, I'm like, no more pint glasses, please. No more medals, please. It's one of those things.
My kids love it because I come home from a race and they're like, what'd you get me? And I'm like, you get this pint glass and then you get like whatever else they gave me for swag. And I'm like, oh. They use it more than I do.
You know what I would take? I would take like 3 months supply of nutrition. That would be far better than a pint glass.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Some like leftover nutrition.
Yeah,
here's
like some goose.
Here's some chamois butter. Like 10 blocks. Yeah, chamois butter. Yeah. They had those. I always run out of those little packet ones. Oh man, they're everywhere.
But I mean, all kidding aside, again, those are things like we would all, that would be far more rewarding. But Adrienne, I think you're nailing something here. It's when you first get into these things, the medals are nice. I mean, that's what a lot of people do it for, is that sense of again, I go back to the sense of accomplishment. They want to have something that represents that accomplishment. But But as you get into this further and further, again, they just start hanging on the wall. They collect dust. I mean, you have a pile of them sitting on a shelf somewhere. Whatever happens to it, it just kind of disappears. Except those few, really, premier things that you've done. If you've done the Ironman or the Unbound 200, like, you do start to you want to sort of showcase that maybe. But I get the sense that a lot of that is just done because you do have to appeal to new people into the event. And what do new people want? New people want that swag and the ability to sort of show off the accomplishment. And Adrienne, I think you nailed it again. What's your why? It has to be intrinsic. It can't be extrinsic. That's a hard thing to get people to that's a hard sell to get people to come into a sport. You see what I mean? Like, what I mean? Like, it's really hard to tell people, hey, come into this sport because you need to, sort of internalize the accomplishment. That's a tough thing because people do want to be able to show off, and there's nothing wrong with it. I'm just saying, I think that's sort of what it comes down to, that human behavior. So.
Yeah, what is it called? Peacocking? I think is
that's right.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, Unbound. We were down there for that week, and we were volunteering. And what was it, Travis? Every time we get a catch of Main Street, a glimpse of Main Street, just
some dude just going up and down in his fresh kit, peacock. And I would just be like, just peacocking the whole time. I'm like, and then you just laugh because it's just, you just see these guys just out there strutting it. I don't, it's like, how many times are you going to ride this section up and down, up and down? Like, I see you like 5 times. Like, I mean, I saw Keegan, who, is a professional bike racer. I saw him ride up and down Main Street once to make sure he had the start and finish correct. And then that was it. But I saw this one dude, and I don't know. I saw that one team that was in the Envy kit. I saw them 6 times going up and down, up and down, up and down. I'm like, what are we doing here, guys? So,
yeah, and that's the thing. Sometimes you got to do. I'm guilty of it in the past. I don't think I'm wearing the most amazing kit, but like, you got to do a little peacock. I'll do like a race synopsis. Like, okay, I feel good about myself because it is kind of nice to have that boost because sometimes like everyone struggles with self-worth. Sometimes it's like, oh man, am I doing the right things? But also in that same breath, in that same boat, well, I'm not talking about the kits, but me doing a post-race analysis on Facebook, I'm actually hoping to motivate somebody else to do what I...
I think there's value in that, in people understanding, how much you've sacrificed, how much, you think, I'm always, I think those Facebook posts are great. I'm just talking about before the race, like not even like days before, when you have everybody in their fresh kit and they're just out there just like up and down, like, hey, look at me, look at me.
No, I'm not knocking what you were saying. I'm just saying from a different aspect
But no, I love the race reports, because then it's like, like sometimes when you did your race recap of Wisconsin, I was like, you know what? I'm thinking this might be the next Ironman I do. She made it sound tough.
I like to swim in a washing machine. I'm going to go up there and do that one.
I might want to do that. All the climbing and on bad roads, count me in.
Yeah. If you are arthritic like myself, do not go to Ironman Wisconsin, at least in the next couple of years, because I'm sure they did not pave the road from then.
That's so funny.
But yes, that was actually one of the reasons why I chose Wisconsin, because I'm masochistic of sorts. I like to do the toughest of the tough. I don't like to stop at like, well, that was a hard, like I did Ironman Chattanooga. That's hard in its own self. But if I was like, well, it was a river swim. Well, I'm not the greatest swimmer, but I was like, let's go harder. Like, let's make this more difficult. My training partner, who still has not forgiven me from last year, she cussed me on the run by the time she saw me, because she's like, I can't believe you made me do this. And I'm like, sorry, but you can honestly say you've done one of the hardest Ironman. Every Ironman's hard. Okay, I want to be clear.
Yeah.
But you've done one of the more difficult ones. At least for Kansas Cityans, where we don't have these type of climbs that are available to us. So I don't know. It's just the pride and the fact that, we keep pushing ourselves and whatnot, that make these kinds of events more, exciting, I guess. This year, I told you guys I'm retired for 2024. I did Unbound 200 last year, and then right after did Ironman Wisconsin with a terrible upper respiratory infection thing. And I'm like, you know what? My family has not seen me. I have 2 little boys and a husband. I don't feel like they've seen me all year, so it's time to retire of sorts for 2024. But I was out there with Serena Unbound. We did the 56 miler, 50 miler, and just had a good time. I was smiling, laughing, and checking out the horses and all that kind of stuff. You just reframe whatever you're feeling and vibing for the year, and just go off of it. Next year, I don't think I'll go totally hardy, but I'll probably start it back up with the 100s again. But again, the landscape itself, back to that. And I want to touch very quick on Unbound and that kind of corporation. It has changed. I did do DK in 2019. And I asked my husband, I was like, hey, do you feel like this has changed as a spectator? And he's like, oh my gosh. He's like, yeah, the streets would, barely be anybody in it. And nowadays it's a complete, fest of trucks, food trucks and vendors, and which is great for the community. I'm actually really happy about that because I've had a lot of good feedback from the community folks have spoken to. But there is a difference. There is a change. We can talk. I'm not going to talk today, but the spirit of gravel at that race specifically is different.
Yes.
So it is what it is. There are other races out there. Support your local races is what I always tell folks, because we want to keep them going just as much as we want the big daddies to be going too. So there's that.
Just on that, Adrienne, I think you're a great perspective on the fact that it has changed. And I think it's funny you use the phrase the spirit of gravel, because that gets talked about every time Unbound is mentioned, and all the social media posts from the elites and all that talk about it and how the spirit of gravel is it dead and all that. Here's the thing: you want the spirit of gravel, go to your local event. But we can't talk about and complain about lack of growth in the sport, and then when the sport grows and gets commercial, we complain about that too. You know what I mean? Like, you got to allow space for the commercial side of this activity to take off, and whether you support it or not, that's fine. But I think you hit a key item here, which is at the end of the day, you got to go support the local events, or else it just won't exist around you. And that's probably the most important thing, in my opinion, to take out of it is go support the local events, or go be a part of the local events, and make sure that those are the ones that thrive.
I'm going to offer a different perspective here. I am more of a quiet racer. Sometimes I think a lot of times I'll show up at a soccer game after having raced in the morning, and I don't say anything other than there's a potential I may be laying on the ground because I've overcooked it. And I'm not a big social media person. If you know me, you may know that I really love to ride my bike, but I do it because I think it shows my kids that even as an adult, you can love something as much as they love soccer and baseball and all the things that they do now. And that my interests are just as valuable as theirs. And if you truly love something, you work really hard at it every day. But for me, I don't want a lot of times kind of that external noise coming in, because that's not what's important to me, which I think comes back to the grassroots events. I don't know that I'll race Unbound again. It's just not the vibe that I'm looking for. I find so much joy in the community of the smaller events and that feel. So I think that for everyone, it's different.
Mm-hmm.
Just a different.
Yeah, I agree.
I think that's exactly like I'm. I really love the grassroots events, and I have a lot of fun meeting people. That's your chance to meet people, to talk to the community, to talk to race directors, to, really just get in and be a part of just your local community racing these grassroots events. But the thing about Unbound, is that it's still challenging, and and it's still, I do like the fact that it's kind of like, you know, when you race your local triathlons or your local running races, let's say your local 5K, 10K, and then you like go to Boston one year. It's this huge, you know, it's the pinnacle of the sport, right? Like it's your chance to go to the Tour de France. It's your chance to see, for me, it's like, if you ever want to hear me like squeal like a schoolgirl, just take me to Unbound and just watch when I freak out when I see the pros that I know, like from social media and stuff. Like if Tom Cruise was down there, I could care less. But like you talk about, we were eating in a Mexican restaurant with Dylan Johnson. Like that was the highlight of my thing. And then I waved to him, and, you know, I basically like freaked out. And then we rode next to Ted King for a while. And, you know, and for some people, like, people are like, who are these guys and why do I care? But for me, like, these are my heroes. These are guys that I follow their Instagram. They're huge. And there's the only way what I would ever get to see them is I would have to basically like travel to where they live, you know, their general area, and then just like stalk them, you know. So it's like I'm not going to do that, but like when you have a chance to see pros at a pro level, I think that is what I really love about Unbound, is that the sport has especially Unbound. And I get it. Definitely the spirit of gravel at Unbound is toast. It's dead. It's 6 feet underground. It's not the spirit of gravel. It is a full on, I would say, race event, an Ironman event, a full on put up event. But understanding what it is, and I'll probably go back as much as I can, because it's just my one chance to basically, like, you know, when you go and you do triathlon and you do an Ironman, you're on the same course as the pros, you know. And if you know those pros, and I was on the same course as Heather Jackson, who's now doing gravel, you know. It's just and she came from triathlon. It's just cool. And I think that's what I really like about that's probably like the main focus point for Unbound for me. But as far as the spirit of gravel and having the most fun, I definitely did not have the most fun racing it. I did have the most fun the week before, seeing everybody and setting everything up. So,
and I totally understand that same passion there with the pros in town and all that. And then it comes to the point where, like, it can be very overstimulating to be downtown. And just, you know, during the race, it's going to be what it's going to be, right? But I think the vibe is like that week of, and it could be overstimulating and just overpowering. So it's like, oh my gosh, I am overwhelmed, at least for me. So hence, like, I always stayed at the campground the past few years, like since 2019, always at the campground and in the thick of it. This year, I stayed north of town, got to cheer on my buddies, Travis and Danny, as they're on their 200.
Yeah, that was the highlight of my morning when I actually saw you. I didn't know if I was going to get to see you or not. Yeah. And then I heard your voice, and I was like, oh my gosh.
Yes. So I was like, I don't know, 7 miles north of town at this farmhouse, like an Airbnb. And it was quiet. It was out in the middle of nowhere. And it was awesome. Like, just what I'm getting at is
to get away from
vibe
it all. Yeah.
is, you nailed it. The vibe is what you make of it. So like me getting away from town was actually quite lovely, because I was able to calm myself, do my thing. And so, like, I know staying in the dorms, I had a couple athletes that stayed in dorms, very, like, that's a party vibe for them. That was, you know, and they were just like, oh my gosh, this is too much down here. So I'm kind of getting off topic, but not really, because I feel like that all plays into the whole spirit of everything, right?
It does. It does. And I think, you know, again, just kind of comparing Ironman, a full Ironman, or even the half Ironmans and the Unbound. I think, again, to me, it's all about the commercialization and appealing to the masses. So in this case, I mean, Adrienne, you hit something really important. It's like, you have opportunity to sort of make of it what you will. But I think what's really important is, at least in the Kansas City area, Unbound in particular is the largest event of these types of endurance sports. It's the largest event within probably 100-200 mile radius of Kansas City. And I think, we kind of move into how do you grow the sport? Isn't it really important that we, again, embrace that type of activity, a type of scale? And how do some of the local folks like take advantage of that and the hype around it? And I'll use a sort of a parallel situation. My kids played baseball and I coached for a lot of years while they were growing up. And the best years for baseball were the years that the Royals were competing for the World Series in 2014, 2015. Massive influx of kids that had never even picked up a ball or a bat at ages that, almost high school ages, picking them up and starting the sport. And I think, the more we can make out of something like an Unbound, or if an Ironman came back to the Midwest that was close enough to the Kansas City area, like, how do we grow the sport so that, that's what's really important here, is to keep it moving and keep it growing and keep, again, that influx of fresh athletic talent coming in. And I think using the hype of an Unbound type of event could be really important. And I think some of the local directors have done a really good job. I know we're kind of going back to gravel, but some of the local directors have done a really good job of sort of playing off of, hey, use our event as a way to get ready for this one. And I think our triathlon community could do something very similar. Like, how can we, sort of use the local events to get people ready for those bigger challenges they may have to travel away for? But I don't know, maybe we could talk a little bit about that. Like, what are some of the things that some of the local folks can do to help grow the sport and drum up the interest and all of that?
So personally, I think just, and over the years and watching participation, the clinics are huge. So even if it's a 1-day clinic, I always did a 8-week clinic. The one that's really grown more than anything is just talking like beginner level folks, and you market it as such.
Mm-hmm.
So that it's inclusive. It doesn't matter what kind of bike you've got. We'll try to make it work for you. Back to that, I will say, kind of a side note, not on the local spectrum, and this is all just feedback so it's not necessarily my opinion. It's just feedback from what I've heard. Ironman, I hate to knock them, the larger corporation stuff, since 2014, the feel is that the passion is not there as much. So it's become so, corporate America of sorts, money driven and whatnot, that, sadly they've not gone to the passion of it where it was back in 2012 at the height of triathlon.
Is the feedback you're talking about, is this athlete feedback, or are you seeing it like in media or what? I'm just curious.
This is more so athlete feedback, and even former Ironman athletes that have since phased out because they're just like, yeah, it's not about the passion and the love of the sport anymore. It's more so how much money we can make. So there is that ugly side of that theme. As for how does USAT and Ironman, I know two different things, governing body versus a corporation, but how do we get that passion back into the local community? I don't know if it's through their marketing like they did back in the day. Hey, maybe it goes back to the 2010 Ironman World Championship that I saw on TV, where they really focused on the people persevering over difficult life situations and how they were able to finish. And then they put the pros on the back burner at the very latter portion of that, show, that there was like, oh, well, and then, oh, Chrissy Wellington came in first, by the way, whereas nowadays it's the pros are up the front. Just that's the main focus, which is cool. Yet the age groupers, the amateur elites, those are more like put on the back burner. So it's been kind of an interesting shift over the years, how we've gone from it's more passionate, you can do this kind of over, anything is possible. Well, then let's show that through our marketing, maybe a little more. This is, again, feedback I've received over the years. that would, I personally think, infiltrate into the local scene. Because they, kind of like what you said with the Royals, if they're seeing it, if folks are seeing it from the top, Ironman, which that I hate to say that's the top, but, or even the Olympic folks, like, this is a really cool thing that's happening. Then people will be able to kind of feed into that more so at the local scene and be like, oh, well, I mean, kind of like what I did. As soon as I saw the Ironman thing, Googled Ironman, or I Googled triathlons in Kansas City.
Yeah.
Boom, boom, boom. There were 4 or 5 of them back at that point. Now we're down to 2.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, 3, if you count. Matt Mason, but soon 2.
Yeah.
Soon 2. Yeah. So I really feel, I hate to put so much pressure in. I'm not trying to criticize yet. I'm trying to encourage the top level folks. But us folks at the local scene, we can do the best we can with the clinics and trying to encourage that this is a worthwhile venture that these folks should do. Getting out of the comfort zone. Me, from the health aspect, 315 pounds. I lost 100 plus pounds through triathlon and gravel cycling, and my health has been beneficial, due to all this, right? So, like, it's a whole different realm. Like, for me, I do it for the health aspect of things. I'm not smoking, quit smoking many years ago. Even though I think it would be hilarious to light up a cigarette in the middle of a gravel bike race. But
I know, right? Just wearing your jorts and jean shorts and just start lighting up.
Maybe have a flask of some Jim Beam or something.
Yeah, some Jim Beam. You guys want to take a pull off of this?
I think it'd be pretty hilarious. But
I think it'd be classic. I think it'd be great.
There's the spirit of gravel right there.
No,
exactly.
But I feel like we just need to reel it back to, I hate to say it, I don't want to sound like that old person, like
back to the good old days.
Back to the good old days,
Well, I think you're hitting on
just a second about the good old days. I still hold a very dear place in my heart for Win for KC. You talked about it a little bit. It was my favorite race. It was just for women. It used to sell out on the first day. By the end, they maybe had 300 participants. But what I used to love about that race is how many different distances did they have? I mean, by the end, they had a super sprint, they had an aqua bike, they had all of the things. And it just felt just so inclusive. So I was so sad to see that go. I mean, I can remember we had a woman who did the beginner tri clinic up here in the Northland who she was well over 300 pounds, who the whole team went and walked the last half mile with her back into the finish line. And that was one of the most rewarding things I think I've ever done in triathlon, was just being out there with her and finishing that race with her and seeing the joy that she found in it. And I just don't know that we could find a super sprint for her to do anymore. So I was sad to see Win for KC go, but I also understand the money side of it, and they just didn't have the participation.
I don't know about the participation. I think there was a lot of, just from the outside looking in, there was a lot of pushback from just, maybe the sheriff's office, and there wasn't it didn't change. I think as a, Katie Rayner was talking about it as, maybe the course stays the same, but you have to have different, acts at the circus. You have to have different things that are going on. Maybe 1 year it's I don't know, like a beer tent or a wine tasting or a cheese and wine festival, or like your thing is your finishing medal is not a medal, it's a bracelet, and then every year you get a new little trinket or something like that. Like, you get, I think for something like Win for KC, the fact that it was, women only, it felt like they were doing it. And this could just be like me, and I'm just an idiot, but they were like, it was almost like they were pandering, and it was like, I felt like the women took it seriously and it was all inclusive, but I felt like the the race itself, it was like, when I was volunteering, it was like, okay, well, when can we open the road back up? Okay, well, who's the last rider? And it's just all this stuff about, like, it just seemed like the sooner we can get this done, the sooner we can, get out of here. And that's what it felt like as a volunteer when I was looking on the outside, which could be different. I mean, it could be something else, but I felt like, I felt like it was a great event for the participants, but I just don't know if the race director or the community, like, just felt like it just didn't come across. Yeah, it didn't feel embraced.
Yeah,
it felt more like, oh, it was pandering.
That's, I mean, the word embrace comes to mind because I think about, we just had Eric on a few months ago about how the community embraces, and I think that's important. Like Katie, when she talked about the Shawnee Mission Trike, it's embraced. Like, there's a reason it's lasted for 40 years, right? And I think that's a part of it as well. And I can't speak to the to the situation you were talking about, Travis. I just kind of get the vibe that, if it's not embraced by the sheriff's office and the local community and the people that are actually putting it on, then it makes it really tough to have have that continue on.
Yeah, and this is the one thing that kind of pissed me off too, and it's just me maybe, but like, when you have somebody who, they're not in, the best of health, but they're trying to do it, and they may be finishing last. When you have like a go-kart, like, I don't know, 50 yards off of them, just following them around, I don't know if it would make me feel upset. And, and then when you tear down the finish line or the finishing area, by the time that person gets there and there's like no more pancakes or no more waffles or, whatever, there's no more finishing stuff, like that kind of stuff just really, I was just like, oh, here we are celebrating a woman only try, and yet it's only for the faster women. It's not for
I
all
feel like
women.
that changed over time, because definitely Adrienne can talk about this. We had a friend, Jackie, whose job was to escort the final finisher. And we were so proud of her and really embraced what she was doing out there and the value of that
not
job
being,
and the person
she was the last, she was the dedicated last finisher. So there wasn't going to be anybody behind her, basically.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. And I thought that was great. I thought that was awesome. Hell, I would freaking do that. I would, I would just be that guy. I don't, but like, yeah, I think in the last couple of years, it felt like, I think the support, I think that's the best thing. The community support and the support of I guess it was, what, Adrienne, was it the Kansas City Sports Commission, right? Who ran that race?
Correct.
So, I mean, I don't know if you were on that group at the time and can shed some light on the inside, or if you feel comfortable talking about, that kind of stuff, but,
So I was on that committee for 6 years, until the last couple years, because I personally had different views than what was happening. And that's why I respectfully requested to leave the committee. So there was a director change, and she's a great human being, but there was also things from above that were happening that were out of her control. So defending her, hence why I knew, sadly, we used to get 1,200 participants signed up in one day. We would sell out in one stinking day, to what Serena was saying, 1,200. We would have 800 to 900 people actually show. So they would sign up. Usually you expect some to not show or quite a few to not show. They would still show up, 800 to 900 usually. But sadly, it started dwindling because of, financial requests, not a major return on investment, per the triathletes that were participating there. And then, sadly, the things that were happening from the above management group. Regardless, I did not vibe with that kind of concept. And so I politely removed myself, but kept trying to, promote triathlon in general, and then just promoting other races and whatnot. But you can tell, like, people are not dumb. If they're not feeling the vibe of a race, they're going to move on, or they're not going to support that race. Right. So being that Jackie, she was amazing. And, was always the last person, which is awesome. She continued that all the way up until the last year. But it was rushed. There were some changes that were made, again, that I was not fond of, and hence why I kind of moved on. And then also the fact that I knew it would drop, and sure enough, within 2 to 3 years, and lack of committee involvement at that point, it hit the all-time low, and they ceased using it or doing it. So, and that goes back to, again, race directors. It's a lot of work, and it's a lot of pressure on them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They've got to perform just as much as any of the coaches around town.
Oh, for sure. And I think the other thing is anybody that's going to, part of the challenge, I think, is anybody that's going to go put on a race thinking they're going to make any money off of it, you're more likely going to lose money on the deal. And so when you get, something like that involves, backing from a local, county or city commission or something like that. I mean, if it's losing money, it's getting cut. And so it has to come out of the private side. And, there aren't a lot of folks that have the ability, the time, or the finances to take on the risk of doing an event like this with, the payoff being, the pride of doing the event, but it can get really expensive fast. And Travis and I were talking about this too, like just the insurance on conducting a swim portion of a triathlon is enough to, like, hey, I'd love to promote a local event, but my goodness, how do you get the funds just to get it started? And so, I think that's some of the barriers just to having the sport, let alone getting people into it.
I totally agree, because I've had, even since that ceased to exist, I've had 4 different people beg me to do a race and to be the race director. And it's like, I love you all, but I can't.
Yeah.
Like, the time commitment alone, the liability terrifies me. And then I was even thinking about doing like a gravel triathlon up in your guys' area.
Oh,
I
yeah.
was like, hey, same thing. Like, I could do that. And then all these big whimsical ideas, I'd love to do it, but yet I know I personally cannot do it by myself.
Right.
With my job and my kiddos, and then just the liability too. But it's like, hey, as a collective, if we want to do this, then great, but it's hard. And that's where, again, is so much pressure on these race directors to get the job done and perform. I understand where it could be very taxing and where the high burnout happens, because, you don't get financially, you don't get any benefit from it. Not that that's necessarily your whole reason, but I sure as heck don't want to lose money.
Yeah. And you also want to make it worth doing too. Like, you're like, if I put this on, I want to, let's say, I at least want to break even, if, but if
I think tying it to a nonprofit is brilliant. I mean, again, I don't think anybody would go into this thinking, oh my gosh, I can make all this money. I mean, the situation, we keep going back to Unbound, but it's like, yes, I'm sure when Lifetime bought out the Unbound concept, bought it out, I'm sure somebody made a few bucks off of it. I guarantee DK didn't get started long ago with the hopes of making $1 million off of it. It got started, these things have to break even so that you can at least afford to do it the next year. But heck, money that gets made off of it, if that goes to the local charity of choice, great. I mean, there's nothing wrong. That would be ideal. I mean, I don't think anybody's looking to get rich off of these things. And that's part of the challenge is, you see the entry costs going up and up and up, and I get it, cost of everything's going up, but it starts to become the barrier to entry, and it creates this cycle that we've talked about. So it's like somebody's got to be willing to take on the risk, and it's really tough for any one person to do it, especially for a triathlon, because of the liabilities that you mentioned, Adrienne. So,
and this is where we're kind of a little off topic here, but this is where I'm going to encourage the phasing out, triathletes, or the ones that are still kind of in it, but they kind of can tell their time's limited in the sport. Talk about triathlon or gravel. I don't care what it is at this point. Just get people active, right?
Yeah.
Talk about your passion, not trying to make everybody's passion your passion, but like, if you see somebody struggling, or if you see even a slight little glimpse of like sparkle in their eye, like, hey, I could maybe do that.
Yeah.
Talk to them about it. Offer them like, hey, I'll go on a bike ride with you on Tuesday night, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And it can even start on a trail. Like, who cares? Just start out, offer your services, offer your time, which I know is so valuable to people nowadays with kids, work, and all this stuff. But just talk about them. Like, it will get them so much farther, educate them, encourage them, that kind of thing. And then guess what? Like, you could have a heck of a training partner, in a year when they, get up to your level and you're like, man, this is fun.
Yeah.
I had the same thing with a buddy. She started the tri clinic that I was coaching. And literally she's, averaged, 14 miles an hour, 15 miles an hour on the bike, and then all of a sudden, boom, I'm seeing Gina come up right behind me. And there she is averaging 17, 18 with me. And it's like, holy cow. And that way it sounds bad, but you kind of get that little oomph too. Cause you're like, wow, not putting yourself on a pedestal, but you helped develop and make someone's life better. Because she's pushing herself. And even this morning, I drove out to her house and I got on a tandem bike with her. So watch out. We're going to go tandem now.
Tandem. Yeah. Now you got to come up with a cool name. That's the hard part.
Right.
Well, that's where Gina comes into play because she's already on it. And there's something she said, like a jersey that I'm going to be wearing because I'm captain. Great. And she's sober. She'll be on the back. And I can't say that on air here because it has a cuss word in it. But if you read this, the blank fell off is what she's is the shirt jersey she's wanting to get me. But I mean, it's terrifying. But again, it goes to like, for instance, kind of back at the very beginning of this, what does Adrienne do? Adrienne goes try. Okay, I'm bored. 2019, I go gravel. Okay, this is cool. Okay, I did Unbound 200. I've done the 100 a few times. Got to help, educate and encourage people there. Boom. Now what do? Now I'm like, oh, tandem. It's just like you always, at least for me.
That's the same with us. It's like, oh, I'm going to try this gravel thing. I did a 50-mile race in Smithfield. Then I was like, oh, I really like this. Let me do the 100. I did it with you. I was like, oh, this was kind of fun. Let me do the 200. Now I'm talking, and me and Danny are talking about, wow, let's do the 350. That should be fun. Right. And then we're like, oh, let's look at Tour de Divide. Let's, that's going to be fun too. And it's just like, it just snowballs. Exactly. And I think that's the best thing is getting, I always try to make myself available for anybody who ever wants to ride or run or whatever, even like past people I know from the shop and stuff. They always, contact me and get in touch with me and always go out for, ride or run or whatever. I'll try to do whatever the best I can to keep up with them on the run. But yeah, I think that's just great. Just putting yourself out there and just willing to talk about this stuff. And then they see how excited you are about doing this stuff. Then they're like, well, I'm excited about doing stuff too. Like, I want to be that excited. And the next thing you know, they're signing up for crazy races with you.
Yeah. And like another aspect, just real quick, so I don't forget this. I have an athlete that I was coaching for half Ironmans and she did 2 back-to-back. I mean, it was crazy. I am like, she's a beast. She burned herself out a little bit. She even got to the point where she's like, I'm going to buy an e-bike. I'm like, go for it. Go buy an e-bike. Yeah. Right, Serena? Go buy an e-bike.
Well, and that's what I have to go. I have a noon appointment. But as someone who's not a coach and who is an athlete who has kind of cycled through and has had her share of burnouts, I would just encourage everyone to just meet that athlete where they are. Some people really love long distance. Some people want to do a short distance. Some people just want to tick this off the list. And if we can just be kind and thoughtful to whoever the person is we're talking to and meet them where they are, I think that goes such a long way in just being inclusive.
Yep.
Nailed it.
That's
where I told her, hey, line up with you and I up there in the front at Unbound. She did the 50 miler. And as I'm in a pace line, like, I don't know, it was north of Americas, I look over and there she is, and she's got smiles all over her face. Like she is grinning ear to ear, having a great time on that e-bike. And I told her, I'm like, full send that baby, full send it, have a good time.
Yeah.
And sure enough, by the end of it, she placed third. They do have podiums for e-bikes. Heads up.
You better watch out for me, man.
Yeah.
Watch out. But yeah, she placed third at Unbound, and that's something that I'm sure like never would have been in, I would say, our mindset previously, but here she is at Unbound, a major international race on an e-bike, and she placed third. That's pretty freaking sweet.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So again, like, and she's an all bodies on bike ambassador. So like she is doing her thing. She is like, I'm super proud and stoked for her because like, again, possibilities are endless. Always in your brain, if you say I can't do this, your subconscious is telling you I can't do this. Write it in dry erase on your vanity mirror. I remember my 2019. Go ahead.
Or just be creative in how you get there too. And that's my sign off for you all.
All right.
Bye.
Much love.
Bye, Serena.
But like write your goal that you don't feel is attainable and have it in your mirror and stare at it every morning while you're brushing your teeth at night, Yeah. And it's wild because I remember I wrote one goal down back in 2019. I'm like, there is no way this is going to happen. I didn't laugh. I laughed as I was writing it. And guess what? Half Ironman, it happened. And I was like, holy cow. Possibilities are endless, So that's the biggest thing, and encouraging others and discussing stuff, taking your time and giving back to the community is what's going to make this sport continue to grow and thrive.
Yeah. What clinics do you have going on, or do you know of that are that you guys are putting on or anything? Do you have any in the hopper or anything that we can promote for you guys?
So KC3, there's a clinic that again has been going on, not under KC3 it's been going on since 1999, right?
Yeah.
There's a triathlon clinic at Longview Lake that's been going on since 1999. I started coaching it in 2014, just helping out. Took ownership of it this past year just because it started to phase out with the sport. Struggled again this year with numbers. So I think I have only 7 folks that are going to show up on Monday nights at Longview. It's more of an unstructured clinic just because of the low numbers. But so yeah, KC3 Tri Club, we're doing that. The private page is where all the things happen. The public page, I'll be honest, is pretty dang stagnant.
Okay.
That is not on purpose, but on purpose because we do have 36 members in our private group. And we get plenty of vibe on that. So we ride on the weekends and whatnot. They are gravel cyclists and they are triathletes. So I've converted my friends, because that's more my club, that's my friend group, into triathletes to gravel cyclists because we like to do that cross training through the winter. And then it's like, boom, I didn't lose my fitness over the winter. And here I am going into triathlon, beast moding it and vice versa. So there's KC3 Monday nights, again, unstructured, show at your own risk kind of thing, 5:30 p.m. at the Longview Lake Beach. I have folks going out there tonight and just kind of going through the mentorship there. So reach out to KC3 Tri Club on Facebook if you guys want to get in touch with me. And then Move Up Endurance Coaching. I don't feel we're doing anything right now. We have a lot of youth gravel cycling that's going on, cyclocross. But I am considering, this is in the works, to BD or TBD. I might be doing a gravel camp over the fall. So I'm working on that. It'll be out in Lawrence, Kansas.
Okay.
Nice.
Is where I'll be potentially doing that, working with the owner on that. But it'd be like a weekend kind of deal with camping and whatnot. So I think it'd be a good time kind of facilitating beginner gravel cyclists.
Okay.
That's kind of the realm there. I will say I'll plug Josh Wolf, an amazing coach here in town also. He's doing a tri clinic, a one-night tri clinic out at Shawnee Mission Beach. Bear with me. I think it's the 26th of this month. It's coming right up. 5:30 p.m. to 8 p.m. Where him and a couple other coaches, including myself here, we'll be going through transitions, hitting some of those hills out at Shawnee Mission Park and how to gear, swimming. I mean, all the bits. So Shawnee Mission Beach, June 26th, 5:30 to 8 p.m. on that guy. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. I can't recall as far as I know of, but another quick plug before I forget.
Yep.
Can I endorse Shamey Butter? Am I allowed to?
Yeah, you do whatever you want.
Okay, so I'm a Shamey Butter ambassador, so I'm trying to save y'all money. Yay. Happy Adrienne, and that's spelled Adrienne. Happy Adrienne.
One more time.
So happy
Yep.
Adrienne, ADRIENNE 20 will get you 20% off of online orders from Shamey Butter because I'm an ambassador with that group.
Nice.
No, not Arlene or Arian.
Sorry.
That's
my God.
Dyslexia. That's just Travis's dyslexia.
This is my dyslexia. Sorry.
We joke about it all the time, but Travis is going to get that fixed. And
there it is.
And I can just say, I know you've been a Shamey Butter ambassador for a little while now, right? So
yes.
We love seeing you at the events because you always happen to have a couple extra packets of the Shamey Butter. So
yes, I literally there you go, man. You got it right.
There we go. All right. Yay. Dyslexia strikes again. I don't know why I'm in control of the typing. It's just the way it works.
I really hope I make Shamey Butter proud. I literally got off of a hot ride last Unbound, like 2 Unbounds ago. So right before my 200 last year. And my husband was laughing because I was in a sports bra and my cycling shorts and literally had a box of Shamey Butter walking through the campground, handing out Shamey Butter.
Yeah.
Yes. And
Love it.
People they were like, what is this? And I've had one guy actually eat it. Don't do that. But anyways, he was cracking up. My husband was cracking up. He's like, well, that's one way to get, I guess, Shamey Butter endorsed. So another thing real quick, the Shawnee Mission Triathlon, Heritage Park 5K, 10K, 15K, the adventure races, Kill Creek Park Triathlon, JCPRD Kids Triathlon. If you're interested in any of those or Kansas City local, do 2024 committee. That will give you 25% off any of those races.
Nice.
Okay.
Boom. So
I'm gonna let Danny type that one.
Yeah. So I'm plugging Shawnee Mission. That's Katie Renner's races.
Yep. And we had her on here before. She's awesome. And well, I'm sure we're gonna try to have her on again before Kill Creek too. Yep. So she can give us the lowdown on how to totally rock that race too.
Run that promo code by me one more time.
2024.
Yep.
Committee. All caps.
All caps. I don't know how to get the all caps part on there, but awesome.
But yeah, so and that's another thing with people reaching out to us coaches. Like usually we have a discount code that we can use. Oh, before I forget, Gravel Worlds.
Right.
Does that induce? Yeah. And he said I can give this out to anybody. This is from the boss too.
Nice.
Move up 15.
There you go.
15 for Gravel Worlds. Nice.
Yep. And that one's all I think that's lowercase. Bear with me. Try it, but regardless, either way, that gives you 15% off. Just me being me, talking to all the race directors out there at Unbound and whatnot. I get discount codes and I want to promote them. Don't get me wrong. But in the same breath, some people, they're like, nope, I don't have a discount code. I'm not going. It's literally sometimes you have to use this to entice folks to sign up for things. And that's okay. And those race directors, I think, expect that. Right.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, anything to promote these local folks.
Yep. Definitely. Yeah, that's what we're all about, especially here, is just promoting local stuff. And, we love talking to the race directors and all that other stuff. So, I mean, this is what it's all about, really, is just keeping the community alive and just getting more people on bikes and doing stuff. I mean, feel free to reach out to Adrienne or myself or Josh Wolf or any of those other, coaches at these clinics. If you're interested in triathlon or gravel or any of that stuff, and just, we're always willing to, spend some time and work on some stuff or talk to people about triathlon or gravel or whatever. So, I mean, it's just, it's super great. And us as this SufferSooner squad, we'll have a couple gravel clinics coming on in the fall again when it starts to get cool. And then I think me and Danny were talking about having like a social ride just one night a week where we just kind of go and ride easy, and you can bring whatever bike you want to bring. Totally inclusive. You can bring your little beach cruiser if that's what you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And someone will hang out with you from the squad. So we're gonna get that put together and put out and stuff like that. But yeah, and I think as far as the public too is, part of the thing that if you want to grow the sport is you have to show up to these things, and you have to go to these clinics and get your friends to go and support that local stuff. Otherwise it will, just like the all women's try, it will kind of wither and go away. And so
exactly.
But yeah, great job. I think
real quick, no excuse on the beach cruiser, because as they have announced, was it 3 guys did the 200?
Yeah.
The Unbound 200
yeah, they did
on Walmart bikes.
So just on that, I mean, those guys are from Rodeo Labs in Colorado, and talk about an amazing accomplishment. I mean,
right.
they were like, we didn't expect them to last, a few miles, let alone the 200. And I think it was a brilliant move. I mean, marketing for sure, but just to show people, I mean, don't get me wrong, those guys are really strong riders, but to show you don't have to have, I think Serena mentioned, you don't have to have the $10,000 bike. I mean, you can show up on anything and get this stuff done. So great move.
And there's plenty of support out there. If you don't have equipment, I can almost guarantee you somebody's got something that would gladly try to help you to get into.
Heck, I mean, I've lent my bike to people. I have lent wheels. There's, we just want more people doing it.
That's right.
It's that's just the way it is. So I can't say that more about, the triathlon and gravel community, is the fact that we just want more crazy people like us.
You got it.
So
truth.
All right. On that note, I think suffer complete, guys.
Thank you for listening to this episode. Please, if you like what we are doing here, leave a like, rate us, comment, subscribe, and share with your friends. It really helps us grow and finds us more SufferSooner squad mates. And remember, when the finish line feels impossibly far away, we don't give up, we push harder, we dig deeper, and we find solace in the knowledge that our suffering is temporary and our resilience is forever.